Hey everyone, Saul from Three Kingdoms Games here, coming to you today with the Banned and Restrict List update for July 2019. Now, as most of you know, whenever a new standard set comes out, so Core 20 is on its way, it comes out this Friday, they update the Banned and Restrict list. So, on this update, they have banned one card in Modern, 2 cards in Commander, and they unbanned 1 card in Commander. So first to Modern, they banned Bridge from Below. Now this is a huge one because this sees a lot of play right now because of the Hogak Bridgevine deck. So Bridge from Below is a 3 CMC enchantment that while it's in your graveyard, if a creature goes from your battlefield to your graveyard, you get a 2/2 black zombie token. If an opponent has a creature go from their battlefield to their graveyard, you exile Bridge from Below from their graveyard. So it has a way to get removed, but the problem is that the decks that are using it nowadays have a way to get Bridge from Below in their graveyard on turn 1 and abuse it really quickly through means of Hogak, Altar of Dementia, dump more cards into your graveyard. They use Gravecrawlers and other things that come back from their graveyard. Their means for getting it into the graveyard is stuff like Faithless Looting, Insolent Neonate, Stitcher Supplier. So turn 1 ways to just dump it into your graveyard as fast as possible. And then they start triggering it, and just the sheer amount of bodies they can get out. And if need be, they can also switch using Altar of Dementia, one of the other cards in the deck, to milling their opponent's strategy. Now, through Wizard's observation of MTGO, competitive as well as paper competitive events, it's posting something like a 66% win rate. And this has started to warp the format in a way where people are now having to main deck huge amounts of graveyard hate, which means right away that you are not playing the deck you want to be playing. You're playing a deck to try to counter this other deck. And the fact that even with all this hate being mainboarded, Hogak Bridgevine has posted a 66% win rate. That's huge. Most decks, if they're around 50% win rate against most of the field, it's normal for a good high tier deck. But for something to be posting a 60% win rate or more in this case, even with tons of hate being mainboarded, it means that there is something inherently flawed in either the design of the card or the design and interaction with this card. So to future-proof themselves against other graveyard strategies that they may want to develop, they've decided to ban Bridge from Below. Now, a lot of people think Hogak should have been the ban. You know, leaving Bridge alone, letting it be potentially a future piece, but I see where they're coming from, wanting to future-proof Modern against graveyard-based shenanigans, which can, revolve around Bridge from Below. So, Bridge from Below is banned. Now, this does bring to light an issue if it was Hogak was the thing that kind of catalyzed this deck and pushed it to that point. Wizards R&D has said when they develop sets, they don't really take Eternal formats into consideration. Maybe they should at this point, because we're dealing with thousands of cards, which I know from a playtest perspective, because I have done board game and other playtesting, it is very hard to take into consideration every possible outcome. Now, that being said, I didn't think Hogak was going to get banned just because Wizards just released this card. They are not going to ban something that isn't a brand new product. It is very rarely the case. So, there you have it, the Bridge from Below ban. Now, next we're going to look at Commander. Commander had 2 cards get banned recently. One is Iona, Shield of Amaria. She is a 9 CMC 7/7 flyer. When she enters the battlefield, you choose a color. Opponents cannot cast spells of that color. So, this one apparently has been on the Commander Committee's radar for a long time. But they figured that the high CMC of it would prohibit its use. Unfortunately, Magic players being Magic players, they have figured out lots of ways to cheat it into play easily. And subsequently, they can end up locking players out of the game. Like, I play it, I name blue. Suddenly, blue players can't counter my stuff. That's huge. If you had no responses right there, suddenly you have no way of countering me for the rest of the game. Or if you're in a monocolored deck, I can just lock you out of the game. It really feels bad at that point. So I'm curious to see how this will affect Commander. I didn't see Iona get played a ton, personally, in my Commander experience, but it doesn't mean that it won't affect Commander in some way or another. I'm sure there is someone out there with an Iona deck. Next up, which is the biggest ban, the one that I am surprised they didn't get to actually sooner, frankly. I kind of saw the writing on the wall for this one for a while. Paradox Engine. Now, Paradox Engine is a 5 CMC artifact that whenever you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. So this means if you have anything you cast, you suddenly untap all your stuff. So what people have been doing is they played tons of Mana Rocks. Mana Rocks are artifacts that tap for mana, for those of you who don't know what that means. You tap all of them, regardless of if it's more than you need to play for a spell. Cast, it's a cast trigger, all your stuff untaps. You get whatever you cast, and you can keep going, and depending on what you're doing with your deck, you can end up potentially playing through your deck, comboing off that turn. The real issue was the fact that you don't have to build around this card to make it fit into your deck. It's just 5 colorless mana, jam it into your deck, and go. And the other issue that some people had with Paradox Engine is that you play it, and not necessarily you'd win that turn, but now I'm going to take 20-minute turns potentially, digging around trying to win. And frankly, if you're going to do nothing for 20 minutes and not win in a Commander game, you might want to leave the table right afterwards because the rest of the table now wants your head. So that's part of the reason for the Paradox banning. The other one, I think, which they didn't address, is Urza has become like the scourge of competitive Commander, which I know to a lot of people competitive Commander is a weird concept, but it is a thing. Now, with Urza's ability to turn every single one of your artifacts into a Mana Rock and essentially extra planar lens, the top of your deck, you could potentially play your entire deck through really quickly with Paradox Engine. So again, this is one of those situations where the entire scope of Urza was not, I think, factored in when it was being planned because of Commander and other Eternal formats. And so it has now warped a format slightly. Subsequently, Paradox Engine is now banned. Again, super easy to abuse this card, so I am not surprised that it did get banned. Now, the card they unbanned in Commander, which I think is cool, is Painter Servant. Now, Painter Servant got banned back when Iona came out, or around that time, so you couldn't go Painter Servant, because Painter Servant is a 2 CMC, 1/3 artifact scarecrow, so artifact creature scarecrow. When it enters the battlefield, choose a color. All cards are that color. In play, in their deck, in their hand, everything is that color. So Iona plus this means you just locked out the entire board. So banning Iona, bringing this back, kind of makes sense if you want to see what this can do. But now you're opening up people to being able to do Grindstone and Painter Servant in Commander. I guess because you can see that coming and it's not as much of a surprise. You know, it's not as big a deal. It's still pretty strong. And then the other thing also that Painter Servant lets you do, for instance, is like All is Dust. Because it says sack all colored permanents. You can literally make people sack their entire boards, including their lands. So I think we're going to see some degeneracy come from Painter Servant coming back, but you never know. So there you have it. There is the banned and restrict list update for July 2019. Tell me what you think below. Are these bans the right bans? Should they have banned other cards? I know there's some people out there saying they should have just banned Faithless Looting because it also enables so many of these decks and so many of these other early drop discard effects. You know what? Comment below. I always read the comments. As always, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. It's an easy way to support us in everything we do. You can read our blogs at threekingdomsgames.com, as well as you can always stop into store and see what's going on. There's one in Markham and one in Toronto. See you next time.